Hello, this is Anthony Smith. I am beginning a series of interviews with retired special warfare boat operators, talking about their operator syndrome, traumatic brain injury, orthopedic injuries, and different things of that nature. This will be interview number one, and this interview involves Chief Petty Officer, retired special warfare boat operator, Dean Lancaster. This interview was conducted over the phone. Dean and I talked for over an hour. We've also been going back and forth via text and Facebook Messenger and other ways. Um, when we did the interview, I covered the operator syndrome scale, which is a questionnaire, the GAD-7 scale, which is a generalized anxiety questionnaire, the PLC-5 scale, which is a national Center for PSD questionnaire, the PHQ, which is 9, which is the patient health questionnaire, the NSI, which is neurobehavioral symptoms inventory, and then a SWC background questionnaire that covered basic SWC background for Dean Lancaster. So this slide talks about Dean Lancaster's time in the military and what he did. He was in the United States Navy for 20 years. He spent 17 of those years as a SWC operator. He was in Class 2, SWC Class 2, and he graduated back in 1991, and his first boat was the Ark. SWC is a special operations force tasked with maritime insertion and extraction of SEAL operators. I've covered that in other videos. He did 7 SWC deployments overseas. In his time in service, he served at SBU 11, SBU 12, SBT 12, and then SBT 20. He worked on the PBRs, the 30-foot ribs, 11-meter ribs, and then the Mark 5s as well. Over all that time, he has about 21,000 hours of time on SWC class boats. He has an estimated greater than 2.6 million weight pounding total body weight pounding events, causing whiplash, possible MTBI, and we'll talk about that and how we get there. Essentially, though, we're talking about microconcussions. Navy SWC is a special class of elite naval warriors who have been a decisive force behind some of America's most important secret missions. Special boat operations have unique and often deadly challenges due to the combination of operating powerful, sophisticated machines designed for speed and stealth in some of the planet's most inhospitable environments. The average SWC operator experiences MTBI and major orthopedic injuries over the course of their career. In peacetime and war, Naval Special Warfare conducts missions in over 70 countries, 365 days a year. The sum of SWC injury does not accumulate until the operator retires. It's important to mention operator syndrome because it's connected to every SWC operator and every SOF person for that matter. There is a nexus of operator syndrome for special warfare boat operators, and you're going to see that nexus of symptoms as we kind of go through this. And quickly, operator syndrome was termed by Dr. Christopher Frew. There's a DOI link to the literature if you want to grab it and read it if you haven't seen it. Operator syndrome is a nexus of psychiatric illnesses and disorders along with chronic major orthopedic injuries. Operator syndrome affects all SOF forces across all the major branches, and SWC is part of that group. As I said on the last slide, operator syndrome is a nexus of injuries. Here you can see all the different symptoms within operator syndrome. Everything in red are all of the things that Dean and I discuss, and these are the things that he's dealing with on a daily basis. Traumatic brain injury, endocrine dysfunction, sleep disturbance, obstructive sleep apnea, chronic joint back pain, orthopedic problems and headaches, depression and suicide, PTSD, anger, worry, rumination and stress reactivity, being on guard or hypervigilant, memory, concentration and cognitive impairments, vestibular impairments, and challenges of the transition from military to civilian life. So Dean and I talked for over an hour. We discussed all of his different injuries, symptoms, and things that he's dealing with. He mentioned to me that he had a crushed tailbone from the bolster seats of the 11-meter ribs. So if you've ever been on the 11-meter ribs, you'll know that they have bolster seats on them. There's metal bars that go through them, and they're pretty hard, pretty rigid. And if you think about what happens is you jump a wave on a rib boat, and you kind of fall down into a trough about 10 or 15 feet sometimes, and there's a giant impact slamming into the bottom, into the trough, or into another wave. And your back goes against that bolster seat. And over time, a lot of guys get crushed tailbones and significant injury to the lumbar spine. And Dean has significant injury and lumbar pain. Both of his knees, he said, are really bad off. He has limited mobility, and he's getting both of his knees replaced. He's doing one knee here in 2020, coming up in 2023, and then within a 1.5-year time frame, he'll have the other knee done as well. So once again, riding boats, especially those 11-meter ribs, you jump off of a wave, you land into the trough, and your knees take a lot of the bend and a lot of support and a lot of the force as your body and the boat are pounding into those waves, and you end up with a lot of knee problems. So unfortunately, he's got to get both his knees replaced. He was probably most significantly, he was diagnosed pretty recent with frontal lobe dementia, and over a period of the last few months, there has been significant deterioration in his cognitive functioning. He has dementia, and believe it or not, he doesn't have any diagnosis or rating or anything from the VA for this. So this is going to be an uphill battle to fight that. He has high levels of PTSD symptoms, high levels of depression, high levels of anxiety, and endocrine dysfunction. Dean also said he has arthritis and joint pain in all of his joints, chronic pain and headaches. He has anger and irritability. And if you saw the presentation I recently did on SWCC TBI, I did a survey. 59 guys responded, and 59 of them said they had irritability. So pretty high, and not surprising. Hypervigilant, severe memory loss, concentration issues, hearing issues, dizziness, and loss of balance and coordination. Again, you look at all these things on this list, every guy that I've talked to has the same set of symptoms, and I have all of these things as well. Dean also said he has mental fatigue, moderate sleep disturbance, sleep apnea, severe sleep apnea, paranoia, which is a different one that I haven't seen a lot with most guys, but it is something that can be from traumatic brain injury. Feelings of guilt, grief, and loss of tribe. I think we all kind of experienced that. Moderate sensitivity to noise, yes. Numbness in extremities. I think every SWCC guy probably has that. And severe executive dysfunction, and that's to be expected with dementia and traumatic brain injury, and he needs help with everyday simple tasking. Traumatic brain injury regarding Dean Lancaster, retired SWCC operator. So the average SWCC logs 3,000 hours of boat time per deployment cycle. I got those numbers from Special Warfare Group 4. I've got those numbers from some retired senior chiefs out of ops from the boat teams. And I went back and looked at my own time on the boats to try to figure that out. So correlating from 3 different entities kind of came up very similar. So just kind of rounded it up to 3,000. Roche's 94 study, his research conducted underway studies on NSW fast boats for 6 days over a period of 36 hours. And it totaled in that 36 hours, they measured 8610 or 8,610 wave impacts ranging from 2 to 25 G-forces. Of those 8,600 roughly impacts, over 4,496 impacts ranged from 5 Gs and above. 5 to 15 Gs was the average, but some went up to 25 Gs. Roughly almost 4,500 5 and greater G-force impacts in 36 hours equals out to about 124, give or take. Significant whiplash events in an hour. The average SWCC operator, you could say, endures about 124 whiplash events, total body impacts that are high enough G-forces on these boats to cause whiplash and to cause MTBI. So that's a lot. The average SWCC operator, looking just kind of adding all these numbers up or multiplying, whatever. The average SWCC operator endures 374,640 significant full body impacts on the boats when they're wave pounding in one deployment cycle. So if you take that number and you multiply it by 7, which is the number of deployment cycles that Dean went through, you're looking at 2.6 million significant full body impacts from wave pounding on the boats, SWCC fast boats, causing disastrous long-term effects of chronic orthopedic injury, whiplash, MTBI, and for Dean, frontal lobe dementia. So you can put it all together, you can look at it, and I know there's 15 different ways to spin all these numbers, come up with different numbers, and I'm not too worried about that. The reason is, even if a SWCC operator only had 50,000 significant impacts, that's insane. That's insane. So look at the numbers, do what you need to do. Here's a summary of operator syndrome for Dean Lancaster and all of his injuries, everything that's going on with him. Etymologically speaking, Dean is a 54-year-old retired SWCC operator as of now, 2022, with 17 years of SWCC boat service, 7 SWCC deployment cycles, including 21,000 hours of SWCC boat time, causing over 2.6 million significant full body impacts while wave pounding on SWCC boats. Dean has over 10 symptoms of MTBI and dementia and a nexus of operator syndrome symptoms. Dean states he endured whiplash, he endured wave pounding at significant G-forces on SWCC boats, and he endured blackouts from wave pounding as well. Dean stated most of his cognitive symptoms started roughly 5 years ago. It's now 2020, or 2022, so go back 5 years, and that's when it started. And they significantly impede his quality of life, which every SWCC guy I've talked to so far has severe impedes to quality of life from all these injuries. The long-term effects of MTBI, major orthopedic injuries, are debilitating for SWCC operators like Dean. Even more shocking, Dean does not have a VA rating for TBI, dementia, and sleep apnea, and most of these other chronic injuries that we've talked about related to high-speed boat wave pounding. It is a tragedy that SWCC operators like Dean, who suffered severe brain trauma from SWCC fast boats, has no support from DoD entities, does not have proper long-term diagnosis or treatment or rating for so many debilitating injuries. Until DON and DoD does research on retired SWCC operators suffering from long-term MTBI and major orthopedic injury, thousands more SWCC operators are going to suffer the same fate. Until Congress passes law to make MTBI, major orthopedic injury, presumptive for SWCC operators with the VA, thousands more will suffer and go untreated. Objectives of this presentation: to provide awareness and help DoD, SOCOM, NSW, the VA, and other research groups understand the research gap that exists. There are thousands of retired SWCC operators ages 50 and up who are suffering long-term effects of MTBI and major orthopedic injury, yet no study exists on this peer group. These interviews will serve as an online archive for all SWCC operators to draw information for VA claims. There are thousands of SWCC operators who need long-term care for TBI and just don't have it.